Hello, welcome back to our combinator tutorial. I am just a random geek, joining Leveler here to teach him how to do combinators.
Yep, hello.
And this time we're going to start off with a decider combinator. And this looks a little complicated when you first lay one down and open it up, but it's actually real simple. It's got two sections here. The first one, it tells it when do you want it to do a thing. The second one tells it what do you want it to do.
So, for example, if I have more than 20 of something, it can send a signal.
Exactly. Right? So I'm going to just lay some stuff here to demonstrate this with. We've got a box that's going to hook up into this, and we're going to hook it up to this lamp. I'm just going to, again, just for demonstration, this lamp lights up on anything greater than 0. And so I'm going to set this and say when there is more than 100 iron plates in the box, it's going to make, and I'm going to use a virtual signal here. I'll explain that in a second. It's going to make a red square, and it's going to set it to 1. We'll talk about the input count setting in a minute. That's a little bit more complicated and really is not that useful for most simple circuits. So, when we put some stuff in this box here, I should have brought more than 100 plates. I only brought 100.
Solved.
Go. So if we put more than 100 in this box, a lot of lag. Then the lamp lights up.
Oh, that's a nice thing. Could you do other stuff than just a lamp?
And you can use this to control anything that's got a condition on it. So you can do lamps, inserters, pumps, all that good stuff.
Oh, I see.
I guess we should have covered more of the things that you can do conditions with at some point too. So we could take away this lamp and say, and flip this around and say if I have less than 100 iron plates, then we're going to output that red. And that will tell us that we need to feed more ore to our smelter. Which I'm going to build a smelter simulator here. That we can feed plates to. And so when red is greater than 0, because we're getting a red from over here. Let me
it inputs, or the decider outputs one red signal, right?
Yes. So right now I flipped the condition around, so if there's less than 100 iron in the box, then it'll output a red signal.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you.
And I should not have used red because the red wire, but I guess now is as good a time as any to explain that. The red and green virtual signals have nothing whatsoever to do with the red or green wires. They're just the virtual signals are just items that don't actually exist. That's all they are. So if you need a place to stash a number and you don't want to use an actual item for it, you can use a virtual signal.
Okay, that's good.
So now if I go and I take all the iron out of this box, then it says, oh, we're out of iron, we need to feed the smelter, and it starts up the inserter. And in this case it's feeding it back to itself because we don't actually have smelters here, but if we did, it would be making more plates.
Okay.
Which you would then presumably put back in that box, and when they pile up enough, then it turns it all back off.
Well, that's a really good thing to have, I guess, if you want to conserve power or anything.
Yep.
I guess.
So you can save power like this, or if you've got if you're doing direct ore to steel smelting, you can control how you feed stuff to your smelters with that.
Okay.
And then
speaking about power, can we do a power switch that turns the inserter off?
So I actually have not played with the power switches a whole lot, but yes, you absolutely can. I think I'm going to have to rearrange these substations here.
Yep.
Let's see. So if I unhook that one, whoops. Nope, I was just going to unwire it.
Oh, okay.
Here. So if we unwire that, which I did by, if you shift left click on a power pole, the first time you do it, it removes the power wires. If you do it again, it will remove red and green wires.
Yep, I gotcha.
And then I just pocket crafted a power switch here, so I'm going to stick that in the middle here. And then you can just take the copper wire and hook it up with one end there, and not circuits, wire. And so now this substation on the right here is only on when this power switch is on, so if I flip it on manually it goes again, and if I flip it off it stops.
Okay, so we have the basic now.
And so we can...
Yep.
And so, you know, that does it manually, but manual switches are boring. Who wants a manual switch? So you can take that red wire, which, again, I unhooked the wire by drawing it again. And then I hook it up here.
Oh, by the way, there's an input and an output on this combinator also.
Yes, yes. And they have... Oh, I should explain the settings I'm playing with here, too. So there's a setting in Options that's not on by default. Under Options, Graphics, down here at the bottom, Show Combinator Settings when detailed info is on. I don't know what that looks like in other languages, but that's English. That's the fourth from the bottom.
Yeah, I see it.
And what that does is that puts a bunch of useful icons on top of the combinators here when you hit Alt, so you can sort of get a little better idea what's going on looking at the world.
Yep.
And also you get the yellow arrows on it that tell you input and output.
Yes, exactly.
And so
input a chest condition.
Yep.
And you output what's happened when the
exactly. And so we want
goal is met.
So we want this power switch to turn on when the combinator tells it to. So the combinator is telling it a red square, so we need to have the power switch say if red square is greater than 0. And that turns on the power.
Right. But I could change the color. Can I?
You can. You have to update both of them. Because I'm
send black instead, because that's more fun.
Yeah, sure. And then you just update the power switch, and I'm going to open the panels for those after you've done that, so people watching my video can see that.
Yep. So we output black 1, or 1 signal of black.
Yep.
And that sets off the power switch.
Exactly. And you can use that to control pretty much anything in your factory. The power switch is, in my opinion, it's sort of the control of last resort.
Yep.
I usually prefer to control things with inserters or pumps and control the flow of items rather than the flow of power. Part of that is because I've been doing this since 0.12 when we didn't have a power switch.
Yes. Maybe you can demonstrate, like I just did, when you put in 100 iron plates.
Oh, yes.
That it will
do that.
Off.
So if I just take all the iron that's in my inventory, no, I don't, the plastic, then when the chest fills up, when it's over this condition, then the combinator stops outputting anymore.
Yes, and the power switch.
And the power switch turns off.
Black one. Yes.
And just like the power poles, I should have said this earlier, you can mouse over the combinator, and it shows you all the signals that it's getting as an input. And if I take these 200 stacks out here, so you see now it's getting 55 input, but that's not 100 yet, so it's still outputting the square to tell it to turn on.
Exactly. So, in a more practical use, you have this at your smeltery.
Yep.
Yep.
Let's see. So, let's have a look at your smelter down here. Let's see what it looks like.
It's quite
so,
big.
Everything in this world seems to be quite big. You just like doing things big, I take it. So, you've got a double smelter here to go ore straight to steel.
Yes.
And then that's a different branch from the iron plates up here.
Iron plates.
So these are just making plates. But I'm guessing that your steel is probably the slower of the two. And so if you request a bunch of steel, it's going to take it a while to catch up, right?
Yes.
So what you can do, and we've actually covered all of the parts of this now. So nothing here is new, except for the belts.
Yep. But I think this is a better environment to show it in a practical use.
Yeah, it's hard to explain belts until you actually see them running.
Yep.
So, I'm going to need a RoboPort here to get... Of course I put that where it's just far enough away that one pole isn't enough to link it.
I can fix it.
So, we're going to take this and we're going to say... We're going to read the whole RoboPort, the RoboNetwork contents.
Yes, by that you put a wire from the RoboPort to
yep.
the decider.
Yeah, it's a little bit hidden behind the power pole here, but it's just a red wire from the RoboPort to the input of the decider.
Yep.
And we're going to say if you have less than how much steel do you keep handy normally?
I have to find it. 5.2k.
Okay.
At the moment, so we can have set a limit on 5,000.
So if we say if you have less than 5,000 steel plates, then we want to make a red square because I like using red squares as a stop signal.
Yes.
And I'm actually going to put a substation in the middle of that belt there to power that combinator.
I'm gonna put out the flow from the ore for a moment, so it will get visualized better when...
Okay. And then I'm going to take the output of this combinator, which is... it's hard to see because it's off the bottom of the screen, but... put a little pole so we can see that here. So we can see there's nothing on this right now. And we're going to hook that up to one of these belts. Or actually across all of these belts. Because all of these go up to iron plates, which you're always going to have plenty of. We're just going to pretend that's true.
Yep. I'm doing a bit of stuff off camera, so the factory will kick in.
I see that. And so we're going to say that these belts are only allowed to flow when red square is equal to 0, which means that it's not being set by this combinator. And I just set
maybe you can pick another color for the so people don't mix up the red and green wire conditions.
That's true. Yeah, let's use
Black. Cool.
Black is a special signal to me. Fine, we'll use black. So we're going to say black equals 0. And so these belts are only allowed to flow when this combinator is not telling them to stop. And I just configure the first one there and copy and paste it to all the others.
Oh, like you showed before.
Whoops.
It's like a shift
right click to copy and shift left to paste.
Exactly. Thank you.
And so all I did was I configured the very first one here and pasted that all the way across. And when I zoom out a little bit, I see we have run out of ore up here.
Oh yeah, and we need more steel, so I'm gonna hook up the...
Oh, and I'm gonna take a lamp here just for demonstration purposes and hook it up to that same signal. And so it will also light up when black is equal to 0, so we can sort of see it happen.
Exactly. And I'm gonna
So if you
enable
go,
flow.
yeah, if you hook those belts back up.
Oh, this is always so nice to see.
I love watching ore flood back in.
Yep. Oh, so since we don't have enough steel, it will shut off iron plate.
I had the condition on the lamp wrong, so there. So the lamp lights up when we're out of steel and shuts off the ore being fed to iron plates so that we can take it all into the steel smelter here to make lots of steel to go into these chests over here.
Yep. And I think we will have enough steel pretty soon. So
let's see, it's at 4.8 now.
So it should turn back on as soon as we have...
and if we just sit here, let's see, what's our production rate?
I'd say now it turned on.
Ah, of course it did it while I had another screen up.
Yep.
And so the lamp switches off and the belts switch on. And so if you only take a little bit of steel at a time, then you won't ever actually trigger this thing, and it will just sort of catch up slowly with the little bit that it does get. Yes. But if you take a bunch of it, then it switches off everything and says feed it all over here.
Yes, and this is a good example if you have if you are pretty low on smelting, or if you want to, like we did, prioritize steel over iron. Correct?
Yeah. So this basically says steel. You basically said here steel is more important. So if we're out of steel, everything goes there.
Exactly.
And actually, because of that substation, I put that pole's redundant. Let me get that out of the way. And then once you've got enough, then you can switch them both back on and just let it run.
Yeah. What if can't we have some red lights that show up like a stop sign or something? Like that.
You can. Let's see. Actually, from a black signal, that's easy to do. So we're gonna take. I'm just gonna steal this red wire from one of these belts here.
Yep.
And so these are gonna light up when black is greater than 0.
I just got a look what you're doing.
And so let's see. We're gonna have to steal some of the steel to make that trigger again. So that will light them up when black is equal to 0, but they'll turn white. They won't turn red. So if you want them to turn red, what you can do is you put a constant combinator with a red signal, and on one of these lamps you check the use colors box, and then copy that to all of them.
Again, copy paste.
Yep. Yes. And in this case, because we're not doing anything with the red signal, we can actually stick that on the same wire here. And then if you we don't have any poles to look at this wire, but so if you look at that wire on the pole that's next to you there, you'll see it's got a red square on it now. And the belts are going to ignore that because they're only looking at the black square. But if I go over here and I take away... Oh, I'm going to have to actually order that from the bots. So let me order a bunch of steel here.
Yes, that's no problem. There should be plenty.
Apparently there's more than plenty.
Set up a requester chest off screen.
Because my order for 500 wasn't enough to make them do it.
I'm setting up 2K in a requester.
There it goes.
Oh, nice.
So now, they lit up because the black signal is true, because that's being output from the combinator over here. But then because use colors is true, they also look at what else is on the wire. And the color signals are a little bit special.
Yeah.
So if you set more than one here, they're actually going to ignore most of them. Okay. So if I set red, green, blue, and yellow, they're going to take red.
Because that's the first one.
And the rules for that is in the panel where you're picking them here on the Virtual Signals tab. It's just the order they are in the row there. So it'll look for red first, and then it'll look for green, and then it'll look for blue, and then it'll look for yellow, then pink, then cyan.
Oh, I see.
And
that could be built into later in more advanced setups.
Yeah. White, gray, and black don't do lamp colors, and so they're handy for using as the on-off switch for it.
Yep. And now they kicked in again, and the lights turned off.
Yep. So when you run out of steel, all these lamps will light up red.
I have to test it again. Haha! And for demonstration purpose, I can pick up some of the ore here, and we will see that it won't fill.
Yep. Interestingly, it's not actually showing the holes appearing under you here. There it goes.
And I guess you can do this with the power switch and outright turned off my whole.
Yeah, you could do the exact same thing with the power switch. You could just cut the power to the smelter. Although
using the example we showed before.
Yep.
It's kind of hard to do right here because I have so many power lines going.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the reasons I don't like trying to control things with power. Is it's getting the copper wires to do exactly what you want is not always the easiest thing in the world. Especially if you're picking up and placing poles over and over again.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons why I basically always go for use the inserters or the belts to control things.
Speaking of deciders, maybe we can count all the ore that's passing by on the belt. Or if you want to show me how to count things, maybe you have a good example of...
Yeah, to count, just to count everything that passes by on a belt. Let's see, this one's an active belt. Let's count this. And just to make this a little bit easier to see, we've got a mod called Nixie Tubes installed. Shameless plug. So I'm going to request a couple of those. I hope we're building them somewhere. Build a few in my hands real quick. And these are real simple. They're basically a fancy lamp that my mouse decides to behave. They're just a fancy lamp that displays a number. And so to show how that works here, I'm just going to hook it up to a constant for a second.
Yep.
And we're going to show the count of iron ore. And whatever number I put in there shows up on the display.
Hey, how does they work? You just hooked up one of them.
So the Nixie tubes will automatically connect when they're in a row like this, and the rightmost digit you hook up to a circuit and configure it just like you would with a lamp.
Ah, I see.
It ignores the condition and the constant there. It's just whatever signal you configure. And it will overwrite those as it updates itself.
So you take the enabled condition, you insert what thing you want to count, and equals, yeah.
And it will always, for itself, it will set it to equals whatever the current value is.
Yes.
That's mostly a dirty trick I did to make them run faster. That's a little bit of magic, so we'll ignore that for now.
How do you set up the decider?
So
yeah, we will probably need.
we're gonna have a big number here. So I'm gonna use two colors of wire to make this a little bit clearer. So the first thing we're gonna do is this belt, instead of being enable disable, which is the default, we're going to turn that off, and we're going to say read belt contents, and it defaults to pulse mode. So it will give you one little pulse of a signal every time something enters this belt.
Okay.
And then we're going to set this combinator so that it will carry through whatever signal it got, as long as it doesn't get a black square. And so we do that with if black equals 0, output everything input.
Yep, I follow.
Now, as it is right now, I'm going to turn off Alt for a second so you can see the wires. As it is right now, it reads that and it outputs it. But if you put some iron on that belt real quick, or here, I'll add some.
I don't.
So you'll see it briefly blinks as a 1, but it doesn't really stay.
No.
But what you can do is you can take the output of it and loop it right back around to the input. And so each time, in addition to the input from the belt, it's also getting the input that it produced last time.
Ah, so it's like it remembers.
So that it will remember them and count them.
Okay. If I want to hook up both belts, do I just take input from the belt?
Yeah, you just take both belts exactly the same, and you just copy and paste
copy.
Yeah. You could also configure it the same by hand, but it's pretty much always faster to do copy and paste.
And let's see what happens now when
So if you hook that back up, this number's going to go crazy here.
And it's flowing. Yeah.
You can count how much goes through here.
That's nice.
And so you can do a couple of other interesting things with counters like this. I'm going to put another substation up here so I've got some power. I'm going to build another one here, and I'm just going to copy and paste that because it's the same memory circuit. And instead of putting that hooked up to a belt, I'm going to hook it up to a constant combinator with a gray square. And when we hook that up, it's going to just start counting forever.
Okay, so you output gray 1 into the input of the decider.
And once that hits 1K, it's a little harder to see what's going on. Now, a thing that counts forever really isn't all that useful.
Nope.
Because you're never really going to come back. But what you can do is, you can set that to a black square and then change this to when black is less than 60. And it will count to 60 and then reset.
Oh, okay.
And from there, you can do a cool thing where you take another one of these, and you
it's getting advanced.
A little bit. And you say, this one says when I get black equals 0 from that one, I'm going to make... I should use different colors for this. Let me make the clock one here be gray. So this counts gray. And then this one says when gray is equal to 0, we're going to make black 1. And then I'm going to flip over, I'm just going to rotate this one that's down here by the Nixie so that we've got the input on the top side here.
Yeah, I'm not really following now, but I guess it will...
It'll make sense. With one more wire, it will make sense. So what's happening here is these two are a clock that counts 60 game ticks, which is 1 second.
Yes.
These two that are right above me here. And then this one says, when the count that I got from the clock is 0, which is the start of a new second, then I'm going to output 1 pulse of the black square.
So it's a second counter, more or less.
It's not actually counting, it's just a tick. But the interesting thing you can do with that is you can go hook that up to this memory over here, and every second, the counter resets. So if I pick up off this belt, it counts how much passes in 1 second.
Oh, nice. Now we can elaborate on this and in some other episode when we get more advanced, and
Yeah.
we can do like a memory of how much has passed in a minute and things like that.
Yeah.
And maybe it can save and show somewhere.